All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this virtual panel discussion as part of Florida Climate Week, titled Youth Leadership as a Catalyst for Climate Action. Just wanted to first give a huge thank you to Volo Foundation for inviting us to be a part of what is now the fifth Florida Climate Week. We are very excited to be here and getting, the opportunity to share our voices amongst a lot of really incredible partners across the state that come together each year to make this event such a success. So really, really glad to be a part of it this year. I am Theo Kowalski. I'm the Senior Manager of Florida Conservation with Ocean Conservancy. I'm going to be moderating the session today, and I'm joined by three wonderful colleagues, all of whom have played a very integral role in engaging with young people across the state on plastic advocacy over the last few years as part of the Plastic Free Cities initiative, which we are definitely going to be talking more about as the session goes on. But first, just wanted to actually introduce these folks, or I should say, give them the chance to introduce themselves. So we're going to go around here just in alphabetical order. So first, I want to introduce Maddie Kaufman, the Program and Education Director with Debris Free Oceans.
Awesome. Thank you. Very excited to be here. My first Climate Week event. I'm Maddie, the program director of Debris Free Oceans, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit that's been working in Miami since 2014. Very hyper local to Miami, and we work to empower communities to go zero waste through events, education, outreach, sustainability consulting, and education in schools. And I was the main Debris Free Oceans lead for Plastic Free Cities, which we'll describe in a moment. And now I have been facilitating Zero Waste Miami, which is a coalition uniting stakeholders across Miami to build our local circular economy. I also teach a class in restoration at the University of Miami and love talking about marine debris removal as a form of restoration. So I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, very excited to have you here. So thanks for joining us, Maddie. Next, we have Andrea Swinart, who is the Plastic Free Cities Manager with Ideas for Us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here. I work for Ideas for Us, which is a nonprofit that's local to Orlando. I've been really excited to join the Plastic Free Cities team. I've been working with my partner Giorgio, and we've been educating the students and training them and going out into local Orlando restaurants. So it's been a really fun opportunity, and it's a big change for me. I am just wrapping up my master's degree and have been conducting bottlenose dolphin research. And I also worked as a zookeeper for about 15 years. During all that time, I've seen firsthand the impacts that plastic debris can have on animals. So it's been really fun to share my experience with students and learn from all the partners that I've been working with. So yeah, really great opportunity to work for Plastic Free Cities.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, we've been very excited to have someone with your background be part of the program as well. So thanks for being here today to chat with us. And last but certainly not least is my colleague from Ocean Conservancy, the program manager for Florida Conservation, Maggie Winchester Weiler.
Thanks, Theo. And yeah, I'm also very excited to be here. This should be a really fun talk. For those that are not familiar, Ocean Conservancy is the nation's oldest nonprofit that's focused on marine conservation specifically. We've been around for over 50 years, and Ocean Conservancy, while we're headquartered in DC, we have a large presence here in Florida as well. We kind of work at the nexus of science and policy, and that's really where this work comes in. My background, I'm a scientist by training, but I've been an educator for almost 10 years now in formal and informal education. And I was one of the leads for the Plastic Free Cities program in Miami and have been working on the Orlando project as well. Even though Andrea and Giorgio have really been on the ground doing the work for that project since I am based in Miami. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk more about the program. And yeah, I'll hand it back to you, Theo.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, before we actually dive deeper into talking about the program and some of the experiences that you all have had, as I mentioned, our session today is about youth leadership and its connection to climate action. So I do want to point out the fact that, while the four of us are relatively young, we are not quite the demographic that we're talking about when we talk about youth leadership within climate action and around the issues of plastic. We had worked on trying to get a couple of the students from the program to join the session today, but it is a tough time to be a high schooler these days. There's a lot going on. They are deep within their fall semester at this point, and very busy. So, we didn't get the chance to have a student join us for the presentation today. We recognize that those students still remain, the ones in the best position to talk about their perspectives and their experiences. But we are going to, hopefully be able to do our best to kind of share that story through some of our own experiences working with the students on the issue of plastic and climate. So with that said, speaking of plastic and climate, let's talk about that a little bit. While it might not be the first thing that people think about when it comes to climate change, plastics are inextricably linked to the climate crisis for sure. Just about all plastic is made from fossil fuels, and the high demand for plastic means that more fossil fuels are needed to actually produce them. And on top of that, they stay cheap and easily accessible thanks to things like billions of dollars in subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. And it can be challenging for most places to incorporate robust recycling and reuse systems, which means we're constantly having to be creating new products, right? And so it's a very global problem. But today we are actually going to be zooming way, way, way in on that problem. We're going to be focusing just on a few communities in Florida, and as you might have guessed, primarily Miami and Orlando metropolitan areas. And we're going to be talking about how the Plastics Free City program is connecting high school students in these communities with the broader community to tackle some of these big conversations around plastic and climate change. And hopefully by the end of this panel discussion, you'll see a little bit more of that connection to the global whole. So to actually kick us off here, I'm going to first turn to you, Maggie. As someone who has been there from the very beginning of Plastic Free Cities, can you tell us a little bit more about exactly what the Plastic Free Cities program is, kind of where it came from, how it functions, and what it's ultimately hoping to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Plastic Free Cities program is first and foremost a youth empowerment program, but it's also designed to help cities reduce plastics by letting youth take the lead. And the high school students that we work with will go through training sessions to really become experts around plastic pollution, plastic-free business, and community engagement. And then they'll take their new skills and they'll go into their community. They'll work with local businesses and actually try to help them reduce plastics. So really the goal of the program is to help communities reduce single-use plastics by letting youth take the lead. So we've kind of mentioned that the program started in Miami. It actually started as a pilot program in Miami Beach, specifically as a partnership between Ocean Conservancy, Debris Free Oceans, and another local nonprofit, Big Blue and You. Then we were fortunate to get funding from the NOAA Marine Debris Program to expand it and make it bigger in Miami. And so we took that program for about 2 years and worked with 7 different schools or school groups across Miami with a focus specifically on the Miami River, really trying to emphasize the connection between youth that live inland and the Bay, which is so close in Miami, but a lot of people don't realize that even if you live, an hour inland, your impacts on land are still making a difference in the Bay. And so after we wrapped up that grant, we got another one from Florida Sea Grant to expand the program again and try another inland area, specifically the city of Orlando. And so that's when we brought in not only people from Florida Sea Grant to help us execute this grant, but we also looked to our local partner, Ideas for Us, to help us get established in that community and really, make sure that the program is fitting that community's needs. So that's where we're at right now. We're in the process of actually wrapping up that grant as well now, but we've been doing the program for over 3 years, and we've certainly seen some really amazing things and learned a lot. So I'm really excited to kind of like dive in.
That's excellent. Yeah. And, so turning now, Maddie and Andrea, as representatives of those local partners that we work with to actually get in and engage with the students, talk to them about these issues, educate them, and then take them out into the community. You both have played a very large role in kind of that on the ground process. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about just like, what was that like, right? Like, what is it like getting into the classroom with the students? What is it like taking them out into the community? What are, some of the things that you can share from your time doing that?
Yeah, if you want, I can start. So I honestly had not thought about the pilot in plastic free or in Miami Beach for a while. Feels like so long ago now. And when we did that round, I think the students maybe had like 2 training days. We went out canvassing right after that. One of the training days was like a pizza party, so everyone was focused on the food. And so they didn't get that much training, but when we took them out to the businesses, we were like, wow, we really have something here where the students love this, the businesses love to hear from the students. Like, let's like try to make this a little bit bigger and do a more bus training because you are asking the students to do a lot by go into a business, have the confidence test for the owner, ask them what they're using, think about recommendations on the spot. Like I didn't do that until I was like way out of high school. And so the second time when we applied for the NOAA Marine Debris funding and incorporated, we did 5 lessons per cohort, was just so great because the students have more time. They built up the skills, they built up the confidence, and that really kind of showed through when they were canvassing in the streets. And I was lucky I got to do this whole process with Maggie, and it was super fun making it fun for the students. Like for some of the interactive activities, we did like a game where we would ask them if a business fell within a membership of a business certification program, and they would write yes, no, or maybe on a sticky note and throw it around the room so that someone else had to pick it up. And like they weren't ashamed about their answers, and it got a little crazy for a bit. And then we did like practice sessions where I like brought in wigs so they could like get into character and like pretend to be the business owner. And so it was overall just like a great experience, and the students loved it. And they were definitely like, you could see them just come out of their shell more and more every day with each training. So then by the time they went canvassing, they were even more ready. And like, I've just formed such strong relationships with the students that we worked with. I ran into one of them at a musical on Sunday. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. It's been so long. Where are you up to? So it's been a great experience.
Yeah, and I've been really having a wonderful time in Orlando, building upon what you guys had started from the ground up. All of the curriculum has been really fun, but also just really helps the students see the challenges that there are. And it's been really interesting to kind of hear about some of the differences between Miami and Orlando, just from especially talking with Maggie. Miami is a little bit closer, in, a lot of the communities to the beach. And I think in Orlando, people can feel maybe a little bit more disconnected from that. We've got a lot of lakes and springs around, but I've started asking the students how many of them go to springs, and even then, not everybody visits those areas. So I think with all that in mind, it's been really interesting to see how the curriculum really shows them how we are connected. We have a new activity that's amazing that we go to a map and ask the students to find the closest pathway to the ocean through all of the different water systems. And to see the students just really recognize how many lakes and rivers there are just around Orlando has been such a cool thing. You really can see they're counting all of the different places that plastic can end up as we're going through activity. So It's been really fun for me. I'm newer to the education side of things, so this has been a learning experience for me as well. The foundation has made it super easy to dive into. And when we go out into our local community, just like you were saying, Maddie, it's been such a treat to see the students just grow in their confidence. I just try to remind them when we go out there, it's okay to not feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, it's been cool to see how students have really been pushing themselves to learn from these experiences. And yeah, it's been fun to see how, like you were saying as well, the business owners end up having some really fun conversations with the students. So it's been such a fun way to see that aspect of Orlando's community.
Yeah, and I'll just say from personal experience, I did have the chance to tag along with Andrea and some of the students when they went out to some businesses in Orlando. And first of all, it was a blast. But second of all, to even see the shift from the very beginning of the canvassing session, I think we were out for maybe a couple hours. The sort of, the typical teenage tendency to be kind of hesitant at first. And then by the end of the session, the students were plugged in, they were waiting outside and they were kind of like, all right, you take this line, you take this line, like we'll talk about this. Like they had a plan, they were ready to go. And it was pretty cool to get the chance to see that. The canvassing was definitely a fun thing to get to be a part of. But and I recognize too, the Orlando program, we're wrapping it up, but it's still only been functioning now for a little less than a year. I'm curious, Maddie and Maggie, Maddie, you mentioned you ran into a student not too long ago that you knew. Do you have any stories or like, do you know what happens with those students who've gone through the program in Miami? What are they doing afterwards? Are they still plugged into these issues? Is it still something they think about? Like, I'm just curious, since it's been a little while since the Miami program, do we have any information about kind of what happens when you come out on the other side of that?
Yes, I can share a few. And Maggie, you're probably also thinking of some of these examples because they're just amazing. But there's one student, and I love sharing her story arc, where I'll never forget, like the first day of canvassing, she was just not wanting to really chat. And like Andrea said, it's like choose your own adventure. If that's not what you want to do, you can man the supplies, you can observe, you can learn, and try again later. And so that she kind of did that the first day, but saw that like this was something she could do. The next day, she was like leading a group of students that weren't there the day before to show them the ropes. And then she ended up joining the mentorship program where you stay on and help train the next cohort of students. And then she ended up doing the mentorship program part two to like start a club at her school for plastic free cities. She's also like gone on to do Capitol Hill Ocean Week and attend Chow in years past to go talk to her elected officials in DC. So just does like amazing, amazing work. And there's more amazing students too. Maggie, I don't know if you want to touch on any as well. We got some other rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a really we had some really special students. Like, throughout the program in Miami specifically, we engaged around 250. And that was amazing in and of itself because it was like 250 touch points, 250 students that learned something about plastic. So that alone is a win. But then of course there's the rock stars that came out and like I think just because we stayed in touch with them, we got to see more of their journey, which was super special. And we didn't stay in touch with all 250 students, but we had a few that like one after doing the whole program, participating in canvassing and everything, she was always really interested in business. And so she saw this intersection of plastic free business and like an interest that she already had kind of intersecting with this interest in environmentalism. And so as part of I think it was a Silver Night program, which is offered in Miami, she hosted a series of workshops all summer that was about sustainable business and business principles in general. And so she did this whole workshop series where she brought in different experts and had them talk about their experiences. She used her connections from the program, brought in like a councilwoman that she had worked with through Plastic Free Cities. And I think she's continuing with a degree in business, but like with that sustainable piece as part of it, which is super cool. And we also had other students that like continued on to, like Maddie said, create clubs at their schools and educate their peers. The student that Maddie was talking about is trying to start a nonprofit. So like these students, they're so amazing. It was so cool to see what they did after the fact. And that's just like a couple of them.
Yes. Another one's now an intern at Big Blue and You and is going off to college at Columbia. Like, it's amazing. Everyone always asks me like what the most impactful piece of Plastic Free Cities was. And it's like obviously like the business touch points were great. The switches we were able to do with the businesses were great, but like the growth of the students from them learning that, something that previously seemed really unapproachable to do is something that they can totally do and crush. And like the doors that opens is like the like most impactful part.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, one of the things we're here talking about is youth leadership, right? It sounds like something you've all learned from the Plastic Free Cities program is helping to develop that leadership is about giving the space for these students to explore their passions, to get to try something new, to, maybe connect some dots that they wouldn't have had the chance to connect otherwise. And so having these types of programs and these types of spaces yeah, I mean, you never know where it might lead for some of these students, which is awesome. Another piece I wanted to talk about with Plastic Free Cities is, the fact that it does maintain such a local focus, right? These students are they're talking about big issues, but in terms of the advocacy and the work that they're doing around these issues, it stays local. It stays within their community, businesses around their schools, decision makers within their local towns. What do you all see as the benefits of engaging with this type of level of advocacy? And how exactly does the Plastic Free Cities program tap into that with the students that it works with?
So, since we're kind of in the thick of it right now, still in Orlando, I'll start off just with some things that I've been thinking about more recently. I think that Orlando has really become known for being a food destination, which is something that was, for me at least, a little unexpected. I've been here for a long time, and it's been really cool to see that perception of Orlando change. And so a lot of the local restaurant owners are really passionate about their work and they want to do the best that they can. We have the Michelin star presence in Orlando, and there is one restaurant that has a green star from the Michelin program. And so I think that being able to kind of have that perspective, it just shows me there's a lot more room for people being open to change and wanting to try new things. Just because things have evolved a lot since, I mean, it used to be that it was pretty common for everybody to go to chain restaurants pretty regularly. And I think that more and more there's been a focus on local food. I think that having the students become more aware of the challenges that Orlando faces, especially with all of the springs and animals like the manatees being in there, and allowing for that space to talk to business owners and bring up some of those local topics. I think there's just more of a chance for change to happen when it's when it's students talking to the business owners themselves, and you don't have to go through all these different channels and have all these different people agreeing on what changes they can make, it's just more impactful. So I have been really excited that we've gotten the chance to work in some of the communities in Orlando, that there are a lot of local businesses that you can just walk very easily to. So yeah, I think that's something that's really important. It's just much higher, it's much more difficult to make a change when there's higher levels that are involved.
Totally. And yeah, I can add, I think it was my old roommate used to have like a big magnet on our fridge that said, think globally, act locally, which I always loved. I should get my own magnet. It's been like years. But, which is definitely kind of where Debris Free Oceans has been working and, just highlighting so many youth and students don't necessarily know, how much local government dictates what goes on around them and how much power they have to influence. And so showing them, both of these things is really impactful. And we did have students that had gone on to one of our focus neighborhoods was Doral, and we met a councilwoman that really liked what we were doing. She actually ended up coming canvassing with us one day, which was super fun. And she ended up introducing a resolution that was to direct the city manager to come up with a plan for the city to go plastic free, and then also express their support of Plastic Free 305, which is Miami-Dade County's business certification program that we'd try to get businesses to join. And we had three students come and voice their public comment, and then that passed unanimously. And so now these students get to like say, wow, like that's, I mean, not that take a lot of work. That took a lot of laying the groundwork, but that also like shows how much you can influence in somewhat shorter periods of time. And and we kind of like to say, it's TBD, jury's out on how well it works, but if we're able to pass all these policies at the local level, then it can show larger governments like the state, maybe one day federal level, that this is what people want and can lead to that larger scale policy change as well. Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like, right, global issues can be daunting to think that you have to change the world. And so maybe, the power starts with just changing what you can in your own backyard. Yeah, I think that's great. I gotta get me one of those magnets too, Maddie. That's always a nice reminder. But I mean, it's interesting even talking about this, right? Because that's all really great advice that can be applied across the board to anyone looking to make any sort of a change, right? So I'm curious, what do you all see with young people in particular, the students that you work with? What makes them well positioned to be advocates within their communities and be having these local conversations? Like, what is it about students and young people? Like, what is their leadership in particular add to the mix?
If you want, I have a good example, then I'll stop talking. So I feel like I just like love blabbering about these things. But this is the case in so many parts of the US, but like where we were working in Miami, each cohort was in such a unique neighborhood. Like we had Little Havana, which is super Cuban, and Doral, very Venezuelan. Our first neighborhood was Hialeah for the NOAA implementation piece, very Cuban, Miami Beach, very tourist. And so, kind of the students' local perspective of going to schools, not so much in the tourist space, but within our inland community space, they had the local knowledge and local context of, what's the history of these businesses? How long have they been around? Have their family gone there? What's their story? What kind of cuisine do they have? Just kind of have that really important local context that you need to kind of build that trust and build that relationship to work together on these issues that sometimes some people aren't as familiar with, which is huge. I kind of like to say we were definitely my Spanish had never been better than doing business canvassing for plastic free cities. But our students really helped crack the language barrier. And even within that, like the different dialects based on what neighborhoods we were in were different. And I like to say, like, they looked to us for support when we were like walking the doors in terms of what to say and like, definitely needed us, but we needed them just as much. So it was like a great reciprocal transfer of support.
Yeah, I think something else that I have really been noticing is a little bit more in the classroom, where I think that the students right now are just so up to date with the science, with all of the health impacts that plastic is having. And they're absorbing all of that information right now. And they didn't learn things that were facts, like 10 years ago or anything like that. Everything's very fresh. So I think having that fresh perspective, and I mean, the other day we had a student while we were going through our activities and we started talking about eutrophication and stuff like that, to have all of that just at the kind of top of their minds while they're speaking to all of these local business owners and politicians. And I think that a lot of them are really excited to sharpen their skills and to be able to talk about things in a more eloquent way. We had students approach us just a couple weeks ago that were excited to, I mean, they were asking us for sources. They said that they want to be able to grow those skills for themselves. They felt like they gained more from speakers that were more polished, and they're pushing themselves to grow that way as well. So yeah, I think that it's an exciting time, to be a high schooler. You've still got so much ahead of you, and the students are thinking about what they want to do. So they're also bringing some fresh ideas, and just, I mean, let's say, a less cynical way also of looking at things, which I think is really important. It just comes from such a pure place of how they really genuinely want to see change in the community. And that means so much more than somebody that may have become a little bit more jaded over time. So it's just a really cool format that this program has.
Yeah, both what both of you said, like a 1,000%. There was, the only thing I will add is there was a study that was done. I think, I'm not sure where it was, but it was looking at how adults respond to youth leadership using beach cleanups as an example. And I think it's a great example because if a high school student is leading a beach cleanup, like adults want to support them. They and in trying to support their local youth, that means then when a young person gets in front of a mic and starts telling them about plastic pollution and how it's an issue, like they're going to listen because they're trying to support their young people and they want to see them in those leadership positions. So it
Mhm.
it really is so important, to have youth involved for all of these reasons.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting, I think you raised a really interesting point, Andrea, when you talked about how a lot, like with young people these days, just in general in the world, science is always growing, it's always evolving, it's always changing, there's always new information, and that can be really challenging for people who have, who are a little bit older and have heard a lot over their lifetime. And so it's trying to understand an issue through multiple different lenses. Um, Whereas younger people are a little bit more kind of locked in on the latest. So I'd be curious to hear from all of you, from your experiences working with these students. How are the younger generations and young people today thinking about the issue of plastic waste? Like where's kind of their starting point in understanding the issue? What are they most concerned about? What are they looking to learn more about, right? Like what are they coming at the issue from?
I think that there has just in general been a lot more public awareness about the negative impacts of plastic in the past few years. And I'm seeing that reflected in the conversations that we have with the students. It seems like most people have at least a baseline understanding that in general, plastic is ending up in our bodies, we're ingesting it, and that has health impacts. So I think that most people are pretty aware of that now. I I think it is, and I'll admit it's a little disheartening to see that students still are a little bit confused about recycling and that process, which makes sense. I mean, I think that most people can agree that it is very confusing, especially as it's been shown to not be the panacea that we were all hoping that it would be. Um, so yeah, but I think that it's been really great to see that they do have a general awareness and that there is that desire to figure out a way to make a change. I mean, they know that it's going to impact their future. So the awareness is absolutely there.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm always very impressed when I go to a classroom with how much information students already know, whether that's from school or from social media or from news articles. There's so many news articles about plastic pollution day after day now. And so, like, sometimes I'll go into a room and I skip the plastics in the ocean and sea turtles. And, like, yes, they're eating X amount of plastics and jump right into topics that I feel like students are sometimes less aware of, like the connection with climate change, which I'm so excited this panel is happening. I feel like so many times with students and with adults, when I say, does anyone know what plastic is and what it's made of? It's a lot of people don't and don't make that connection. Um, and also raising awareness on the health impacts of plastic production and the air emissions in places like Cancer Alley and how they're linked to these extremely high rates of cancer and disease in communities of color. Like when people realize that, everyone's like, how have I not known this with these products that I touch every day? Um, and so on the flip side, on the solution side, like Andrea was saying, there's a lot of misinformation around recycling. There's a lot of confusing information about bioplastics. And so I think there's a lot of space where we can, empower in positive solutions and what are kind of the best. You can kind of give them a hierarchy of the best steps to take when you're trying to phase out plastics, which we do in our curriculum. But I also like this program because it really highlights like it is not just on them. Like a lot of marketing and communications over the years, like people need to stop littering, people need to stop using plastics. But it's like, yes, that's a part of the puzzle, but we also need to ask our businesses to be better. We also need to work with our government to be better. And I think that's really important because I know there's a lot of like climate anxiety in the youth. So I think a program like this, um, highlighting that and again, empowering them to be like a part of those various pieces is so great.
Yeah, and I'll add on, like when it comes to solutions, I interact a lot more with undergrads for the most part outside of the Plastic Free Cities program. And, you know, I feel like we all feel terrible about what the next generation is walking into, and it can be, hard to even imagine what the solutions are going to be to the problem that we found ourselves in, and that we've contributed to for decades. But when I talk to students about it, I feel like I hear a lot about like ideas for AI or policy. Like the ideas that I hear students talking about are just so innovative, so interesting, like so far away from the way that my brain thinks or like the things that we talk about, as people that have been in our careers. Like, I know we're all early career, but we've still been in our careers for a while, right? So I get so much hope talking to that next generation specifically about solutions because it's stuff that like I would just never think about, especially when it comes to AI. Like that is just not how my brain works, but it does give me a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's true, right? I mean, the stuff that they're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's not even touching on the fact, right, that the amount of information at their disposal at any given point in time is unlike anything we ever experienced growing up. And so it's very interesting to kind of see and think about how they use that, right? Like how they take that, how they use that to inform their thoughts of solutions and other things, just like from things that they're exposed to all the time that we wouldn't have been. So it'll be exciting to see kind of as they continue on that journey what they start to come up with because it's those ideas that we need more than ever, for sure. But you know, talking about that a little bit more, thinking a little bit more about the issues and solutions, etc. Let's start to kind of slowly zoom out a little bit, and I'm curious what you all think about how talking with students and young people specifically about the issue of plastics, how does that help connect them to the broader climate discussion with its, myriad of problems and potential solutions? What is it about plastics as sort of being the entry point?
I want to take it back just for a second to what Maddie was speaking about in the previous discussion, where it is so important for the students to learn how to engage, you know, businesses and government together, because that is where we're going to make obviously huge change. But I also think that part of what I love about this program is it does also remind students that the individual absolutely does have power. I've seen a lot of discourse on internet forums about how the individual doesn't really have as much sway. I think there are some people that hold that opinion because it can be, I mean, you're just one person, you know? But I think that that is at the foundation of this program, something that we are reminding people is that hey, we do have power, and it's important for us to show the students and to give them the tools to exercise that power on an individual level because there's what 8 billion people on this planet, and if everybody had those tools, I think there would be a little bit more power that everybody felt on that individual level. So that to me is something that's been really valuable, is to help students see that they can make change on that individual as well, but by learning how to engage with the businesses and the government.
Totally. Yeah, and I can add, I feel like when it comes to making that connection with climate, obviously we've kind of all touched a bit on the fossil fuel beginnings of plastic, but I feel like kind of using plastics as this really key, tangible example of our linear economy can just kind of highlight the holistic approach that we need to take to combat climate change because it's very apparent how we you know, take this non-renewable resource, make from it, use it for a matter of seconds, super cheap, throw it away, don't think about where it goes, don't worry about creating a circular process, and thereby removing our resources, creating lots of massive waste, which waste was never a thing for the majority of human history, and kind of bringing that into like the climate change space of how we're just like continuously using and producing these emissions and not recapturing and not like creating this regenerative circular systems that again the earth has evolved to be. And we do life cycle analyses in the plastic free cities curriculum where we have them think about for everything they're touching, where is it coming from, how is it serving you when you're using it, and then where does it go when you're done, and what are the impacts associated with that. And so I hope and I think that the students kind of bring that life cycle analysis, beyond the plastics and the businesses that they're working with, but to their everyday life whenever they pursue in terms of their career. There's LCAs you can do pretty much within any context. So I feel like that really kind of can apply to this larger scale um, climate advocacy effort.
Yeah, and just kind of like tying together your two answers, like I feel like this program helps students build the skills so that then they can apply them to whatever, issue they care about. They can take the skills and feel empowered and feel like they can make a difference if they make their voices heard, if they step up, and that can be for climate change, that can be for other issues that they care about. But really, this program is about building up students and giving them that voice and helping them feel comfortable with their voice so that they can go and be leaders and make a difference.
Yeah, and I can also add, like, so they can kind of pick whatever issue they care about, or if there's like an issue of the program that they're in, whether it's climate, whether it's plastic. We always say, like, you can choose your own adventure within that space as well. So maybe the issue is plastics and waste, but maybe you can look at it from the textile perspective if you really like clothing and look into sustainable fabrics. Or if you're an artist, you can become a artist that used material that would become waste. Like, so many of these issues are so far reaching that you can find a way that it connects to something you care about, and therefore have it be something that you really enjoy and can really like put your heart and soul into as you continue to work on it.
Yeah, and that's I think a perfect way to think about it and to frame it. And so I would, kind of take that and one step further and open it up to all of you for your thoughts on this as well. So for any young person who hopefully is watching our session today, even if they haven't had the chance to go through a program like Plastic Free Cities or anything like that, from y'all's perspective, what is the best thing that that young person can do today to begin to help create solutions to some of these issues like plastic pollution, like the broader climate crisis, and all of those pieces in between, like you were saying, Maddie, that do connect and have a role to play? I feel like getting started is always the hardest thing, right? So what is important for young people to know and think about in terms of this is that first step?
I can
Yeah.
start off. Um, so what I like to tell anyone, including young people, but anyone, is the best place to start is to educate yourself. And I mean, like, look into science-based, peer-reviewed, trusted sources for information and learn about the issue. Learn about not only the parts that matter to you. Like, let's say you're in Miami like me, and you just really love sea turtles and you love dolphins and you just love being in the ocean. Learn about plastic pollution and how plastic is impacting those things, but also learn about the human health, learn about the social justice aspects, learn about it all. I think that's the best place you can start, and make sure that you are finding trusted sources. And yes, there are some really great science communicators on TikTok, but make sure you are filtering and vetting your sources so that you're getting the best, most accurate science-based information you can get. That alone is so powerful.
Mhm. Yes. Retweet from my verified account. No, just kidding. Um, but agree with that. And then my other piece of advice, especially if it's kind of like first step, obviously, kind of this comes with like having the luxury of a little bit more time. But if you can start volunteering, whether that's with community organizations in your neighborhood, maybe it's clubs at school, kind of like dip your toes in a few things, but then pick one or two or narrow in again on those ones that like really speak to you. Because you don't want to spread yourself too thin. I feel like I kind of did that growing up where I was like, I'm just going to be in a gazillion clubs rather than pick a few and do really well at them. And so I'd say, you got to play the field, try it all, see what you like, and then pick a few to like really dedicate your time to, contribute to it as much as possible to build up that organization or entity because you believe in their mission. And then again, reciprocally, it will help build your own skill set and such. I definitely got my beginnings within the climate and environmental space by volunteering and finding spaces like plastic pollution and ecosystem restoration that I was like, this is it. And I'm so glad I volunteered and figured that out because I don't know what I would be doing otherwise.
And I think that's part of why I really love that Ideas for Us has been a part of this program. It's been so nice to just have that to remind students, hey, if you want to do something, just go on to our Instagram and there's going to be a cleanup in a couple weeks, you know? And something else that I really think is great, and I like to emphasize during our presentations, is we have where the students can scan a QR code and they see a whole list of options that they can do to minimize their use of plastic. And, it's the typical suspects, use a reusable water bottle, bring your own bags, things like that. But it's a pretty long list. And I like to remind students, just like you're saying, Maddie, that it's best to just build habits one at a time and to not try and overwhelm yourself by making too many changes at one time and getting frustrated with yourself and saying, oh, well, I just can't do this, you know? And I know that because I've been there myself. So I really like to emphasize to the students that just pick one thing. You can do it really slowly and just build those habits from there. And then before you know it, things that used to kind of be a struggle just are habit and you don't even think about it anymore. So I think that's been another really cool component of the program.
Yeah, I love that. And I can probably pop that QR code into this video at the end. So if folks are curious and want to know where to start, they can take the plastic pledge and see what they can see if they can pick one thing they want to commit to, either something ideally not something they're already doing, something new. And there's a lot of great options on there and ideas for next steps you can take.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great, Maggie. I'm sure folks would definitely appreciate that for sure. Um, well, I mean, we're coming up on the end of our hour. So the last thing I wanted to ask all of you, we started by mentioning this is a global issue. There's a lot of pieces to it. It can be very daunting. Um, it can be hard sometimes to feel encouraged or find hope in the work on these issues. So I'm curious to hear from each of you, what is one piece of your time with plastic-free cities? It can be anything, any sort of interaction, experience, etc., that has given you hope for the future, not just the future of plastics or climate, but just what has given you hope as you kind of look down the road through your work, plastic-free cities?
I think just, going into the school system and seeing what the students and the teachers are doing is pretty fresh to me. So I've been really impressed with all of the different programs that some of the teachers have and how dedicated and passionate they are. I mean, even just the ag programs that exist in the Orlando schools. There's a teacher I'm working with now that partners with the local university, with her high school students doing research there. And so I think that's just been a really great reminder is that there are a ton of amazing people in this world, and everybody is doing their part. If they're really passionate about the environment, and issues like that, there are people that are in the schools and they're doing the best they can right now. And I think what is great about that is I know that I had some teachers from when I was a student that I really admired and modeled. And I am very certain that the students of those teachers right now are going to just build upon all of that great work. They're going to, I mean, you can recognize when you're a part of something that's really effective, and be proud of that. And that has been just such a great reminder of how it does take just a village. It's not just the one person, it's the partnership all around that has the best chance of making an impact.
Yeah, we also had some amazing teachers that we worked with because we always had to connect with like a science class or the head of an environmental club to get our foot in the door and formalize that partnership. And we had some incredible teachers. And I can add, there was one story that I didn't get to tell yet. This is a great point for it that really gave me hope. And Mag, you might have been there that first day we canvassed this business. We were in Doral and we had like struck out at two businesses and like we get to one and it's like, wow, this spot opened a month ago because they weren't here last time we canvassed. We're like, oh great, they're brand new. They probably have so much going on. They're not gonna want to talk to us, but let's go in there and chat. And they were so kind. Um, they were busy. They asked us to come back another time. So we did, ended up working with them. Like they were one of our main businesses for that cohort. Um, they worked with the students to purchase reusables, a water refill station, some compostables, and then they ended up like giving food for one of our events. We had um, a local news agency want to come feature them, which was another great point of inspiration. We had a couple of media opportunities, which was great, seeing that like this is something local media wanted to cover. And they were shy, but they're like, no, we want to do it. We want to do it. And so they found time in their busy, brand new business schedule to do it. And then they even like texted me or emailed me a few weeks later and were like, hey, just wanted you to know, like, we're constantly thinking about your students. We actually just were able to swap out our single-use plastic package cheese so we could buy in bulk and get rid of all of that plastic wrapping. And then I got a farewell to foam sign-on letter for business owners that I just like passed around to see if there were any of our local restaurants wanted to sign on to that. And I received the list of signatures and they signed on to this farewell to foam act. And it's just like amazing where we've kind of talked about this. And I feel like this like thickens the student skin. Like you're not all the businesses are going to be interested, at least in Miami. It looks like Andrea's agreeing with Orlando. But you know, you just got to keep going. And like maybe like, I'd like to say it's kind of like 10% from my experience, but every 10%, like, or every 10th business, you find this amazing business owner that really listens to you, hears you, and, you know, wants to do what you're suggesting and take it the extra mile and continue thinking about it, even when the students are done visiting. That's been great.
Yeah, and you know, even though like so the way that the program works, you know, we go to 5, maybe 10 businesses with the students each time we canvas. And Maddie's right, like it's not a lot that are like into it and like ready to make a change. But you know what? A single business can have a massive impact. We estimated that with the changes that are something like 11 businesses in Miami that like committed to making changes. We estimated that those 11 businesses are preventing 1.2 million single-use plastic items from being used every year, annually. So a single business is huge, you know? It really only takes a few to make a massive impact. But what I was going to say, I just wanted to add that. What I was going to say, what really inspired me, I guess +1 to both of those, what you both said, because love our teachers. Teachers are the best. Thank you, teachers. But I was really inspired by the students taking time to participate in the program at all. Because students now, there's so much pressure on high schoolers to have a million extracurriculars and like to get into college. Like they feel like they have to do so much. And so many of them are already doing so much. And this program ran, for the most part, as an after-school program in most of the schools, with a few exceptions. And so these students were taking, you know, an hour after school to stick around and be part of this and, you know, go with us to businesses, take a couple hours on after school for canvassing days or on a weekend to go and do this thing that's kind of like intimidating, kind of scary. Like the first couple times you go and knock on doors, like we mentioned, you don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know who's on the other side of that door and like how they're gonna react. So the fact that these students are just willing to give it a shot and then like commit to it, and that some of them are willing to like keep going, even though, you know, we don't have funding to do the program in Miami at the moment, but the program's happening in Miami at the moment because the students are keeping it alive. That to me is just so amazing and gives me so much hope for the future. Like really the goal of this program is to plant the seed And so I hope we're able to keep expanding it and try new areas, and I mean, hopefully come back to Miami. Like I hope that this program just has such a wide reach in Florida, because planting that seed in different places, slowly it's grassroots organizing, right? It's like people slowly building up power and building up a message. And so that's what gives me hope with this program.
Speaking of growing in Florida, we have a whole curriculum packet that we can
Yes,
send anyone.
that's also true. We have the entire plastic-free cities curriculum is available for anyone to use and can be picked up anywhere. So that's another way that we're like just trying to spread it as far as possible and plant that seed in as many places as possible. Because then hopefully one day all of Florida's restaurants will be plastic-free or making efforts or at least care about plastic. And then maybe one day policies will reflect, that effort as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just huge thank you to the three of you for doing so much of this work, and as you said, for planting that seed. I mean, the exciting thing about working with young people, as we've mentioned, is that it is just the beginning of their journey. They have countless pathways to make a change and to leave an impact. And so just thank you to the three of you for doing that work, for having those conversations, for showing up, for being present, and for giving them the opportunity to kind of to get started on that pathway. As you all mentioned as well, we have resources available for people who are interested in doing similar type of programs. I believe our contact information is on the Whova app. We can also probably find some other ways to get that out if people are interested in getting in touch with us. But for now, just thank you to all of you for participating. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch us today, and hope folks enjoy the rest of Florida Climate Week. And have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Theo. And thank you for being an awesome moderator. And I'll edit this and just add some QR codes as like the last couple seconds so that folks can sign the plastic pledge, commit to doing one new thing that is going to help them reduce plastic. And then also I'll link some of those resources right at the end.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.